Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Secrets of a Witch podcast with me, Sabrina Scott. And on this show, I talk about life, love, healing, spirituality, witchcraft, magic, divination, tarot, self-improvement, mindset, growth, feminine energy, and a lot of other things. And I'm sure you guys probably noticed that I have been incredibly MIA over the past month. And there is a reason for that. If you've seen my Instagram, you probably know why. And if you haven't, I will tell you. So remember how 2 episodes ago, my episode about Mercury Retrograde, how to survive it, I was telling everyone to slow down, take it easy, because if you don't, you'll probably be forced to do so via an illness or something during Mercury retrograde. And so, hilariously, I could not avoid that happening to me, interestingly. So I ended up basically waking up the day that Mercury retrograde started feeling like I got hit by a bus and was the sickest I have ever been in my entire life, pretty much up until the day that Mercury retrograde ended. And the day after Mercury retrograde ended, I did my first market in a while, and I'm so glad that my voice recovered just barely in time to be able to do that. And it was a very interesting experience to basically spend all of Mercury retrograde unable to talk, with a fever for a third of it, and coughing up these disgusting enormous wads of phlegm every 30 minutes. I would be waking up basically coughing up phlegm. It was disgusting. I'm sorry you guys have to listen to me describe this, but there's a reason I'm talking about this. And so I had to have this little cup next to me in my bed for the last 3 weeks, those 3 weeks of retrograde. Because where else am I going to spit up all this disgusting stuff? And thank God for ChatGPT, because I kept sending photos of what I was coughing up into ChatGPT, being like, am I dying? Do I need to go to the doctor? Do I need antibiotics? What's going on? Am I getting worse? Is this normal? Because I'd never seen this before. I'm 35. I've never been this sick in my life, ever, with a cold, flu, whatever it was. And anyway, whatever, I'm getting there. I still feel a little bit in my chest with my breathing and all of that. My breathing still feels a little bit shallow, but over the past few days, I've been able to actually sleep through the night without waking up to cough. So that has been really, really nice. Change of pace. And so today I want to talk a little bit about what the hell does it mean to be so sick during Mercury retrograde, because this, I think, has happened to quite a few people that I know, interestingly. It wasn't just me that was sick during this. But mine is the only one that I'm aware of where it was literally the first day to the last day, clockwork, exactly on schedule. So what does it mean to be sick as a dog during Mercury retrograde? What does it mean to get the worst plague you've ever gotten during Mercury retrograde, a time of reflection, thinking, contemplation, stillness, in my case, forced stillness. I literally was not able to work. My brain was not computing with my fever and just how sick I was. So I was losing sleep. So my brain was just not working. I was so behind on emails. I could not even the entire time. I couldn't talk for 3 weeks. When I would try to talk, it would come out like a little croak. And so if Mercury rules communication, and Mercury retrograde is communication kind of moving backwards, our mental moving backwards, our intellection moving backwards, our contemplation, reflection, looking back at the past. It is really interesting that I was actually unable to physically speak that entire time. And so that inability to speak and how I speak is very much how I express myself. You guys know this. Is really interesting to basically be forced into a 3-week silence period. And it forces contemplation, it forces reflection on where I'm at in life, past relationships, past connections, family, where do I want to go in general with the business, book stuff, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, where do I want to be living? What do I want the future to hold? What have I learned from the past? What kind of connections can be repaired, rekindled, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, sometimes that's not the case. But it created this bubble of time where I basically had a kind of 3-week-long dark night of the soul. And not to say that in a bad way, it was actually quite good, I think, though I was a little bit bummed for some of it. Obviously, being so sick, I had to cancel a lot of things. Be they events, stuff with friends, like a ton of clients obviously had to be rescheduled. Podcast interviews had to be rescheduled. Myself appearing on other people's stuff had to be rescheduled. Just a whole ton of stuff I had to be rescheduled, and that sucked. I was bummed about that. But there is this opportunity to just reflect. And one interesting thing that I kind of chose to do throughout this retrograde period, and it's funny, right? Because a lot of people, and myself even too, sometimes I'm like, beware of the people reaching out to you during retrograde. Like, make sure that it's really for the right reason if you re-engage. And during retrograde, I actually decided to reach out to multiple people. And I'm actually super glad that I did, because each of those 3 interactions went amazing. And that's one of the things I feel like I've really taken in and experienced and learned from this retrograde period is, in past retrogrades, I have never been the person to reach out, like, ever. It's not a thing. But this time, after all of this kind of sickness blob of thoughts and whatever, uncertain things happening and yada yada, I decided to kind of be that person to reach out during retrograde. And so, yeah, all of those experiences went really well for me, because I knew they were coming from a grounded place. And that is also something I want to throw out to you guys is, it's okay, I think, when we do it in a grounded, emotionally sober way, to work with the energy of Mercury retrograde as this portal through which we can connect with people from our past. And when we do that from a place of groundedness and emotional sobriety, rather than desperation, fear, lack, scarcity, it's possible for those connections, if they're the right ones for us, to go pretty well. Even though it could go any number of ways in the future, nothing is really guaranteed. So that is something I just wanted to throw out there to y'all to think about, right? And now that retrograde is over, technically, I would really encourage y'all to reflect on that 3-week time period and notice what started for you around the beginning of retrograde, what ended for you at the beginning of retrograde, what were the lessons that you learned, what were the noticings that you had during that time, emotionally, spiritually, what did you go through, and how can you work with what you learned during all of that to take forward into December, and then eventually, maybe some of it into the new year, and I'm sure some of it to also leave behind in 2025. Having a Mercury retrograde so close to the end of the year, I think, is quite powerful. And I know for me, as I said, it completely knocked me on my ass. And you know what? I think I really needed that to happen for a lot of different reasons I'm not going to get into, but it enabled some really interesting reconnection that has been really healing and really important for me. And I don't think any of that would have happened. I don't think I would have felt as inspired to reach out in the ways that I did to the people that I did if I wasn't so sick and feverish and like in this state of contemplation. Because when you're that sick, like, you have no pride. You have no ego. You're operating, at least for me, I was operating from a space of soul, I think. Sounds corny. But regardless of what retrograde was for you, I did a poll on Instagram, and I think most of you were right with me in the muck. Almost none of you voted that you were completely unimpacted by retrograde. Most of you were like, it's kind of shitty, or it's incredibly shitty. So what I would like to encourage y'all to do, if you haven't done so yet, if you've got an oracle deck or two, or a tarot deck or two, why not pull a card from each And the question could be, what did I learn from Mercury retrograde? Or what was the message from Mercury retrograde that just happened that I need to bring with me? What is the learning here? What is the main takeaway I should walk away from this time period with? And I think that will end up being a big opening. For me, just for funsies, I'll share with you guys, my lesson card when I asked this was the reverse Queen of Cups. And so what I take from that is that there's a lot of power in not being emotionally on the up and up. And that it is safe to contact folks, which is what I did during retrograde, from a space of emotional vulnerability and kind of a low. It's okay to share that. It's interesting because being a coach, doing the work that I do have a very public-facing vibe of being very put together, and I think that is 100% true. Like, that is how I show up in my normal life. But it is really nice to sometimes put that number down to like 98%. And to have that 2% of like making space for the tougher emotions sometimes. And to let some folks in to experience that together. Or even just to admit to another person, I'm so sick, I feel like sad. And that, for me, was my very interesting Mercury retrograde takeaway, is that there is power for connection in creating space, allowing space for some of those, let's say, not awesome emotions. So that's interesting. So pull a card for yourself, because your lesson is going to be different from mine. And it should be. And contemplate on that card, journal about it, write about it, which is what I did. I really highly recommend doing that whenever you pull cards for yourself, writing them down, reflecting on it, sitting with it. So I think I pulled that card like a week ago, and I'm still kind of contemplating it. And I think that's a really, really good practice to be in. Of course, there's also December tarot for the month ahead that is over on YouTube that you guys can go check out. It is obviously youtube.com/Sabrina Scott. Go check it out. I pulled a bunch of oracle cards as well as tarot for December. I think it's totally worth listening to. Really interesting energy is swirling around in December. Definitely not bad. We got a lot of major arcanas, a lot going on. And so I do think it is something to go listen to and see what your vibe is going to be for this month, because December is so interesting. I love December, not just because my birthday is in December 13th, take notes, but because December is this beautiful bridge. It's a liminal space. We are beginning to wind down the year that we have just had. We're beginning to think about the next year that we've got coming up. It is this beautiful liminality, this kind of space where we are in between the past and the future. And the present right now for December is like a kind of nice half and half mix of both. And then, of course, towards the end of the month, we've got solstice, the longest night of the year, and then we begin to welcome the light back in. So there's a lot of transitions, a lot of movement, a lot of beauty, a lot of grace that we can access in December. It's honestly such good vibes. And we've got Sagittarius season, yay, moving into Capricorn season. And so we've got the two most ambitious signs as we reflect on the year and move into the next. I don't think that's any accident. All right, y'all, I'll talk more about that soon. I just want to get this episode out because it's been a hot minute since I've released one. Do go check out the YouTube, subscribe if you haven't yet. I am going to be doing a Sunday service this weekend on YouTube. I obviously was MIA from YouTube because I was not able to talk. And then last Sunday I did the farmer's market. And so I could not, because that was actually a daytime thing, like 9 a.m. to 2 or whatever. And by then I was like, I am talked out. I cannot talk anymore. So we will be kind of transitioning back into doing Sunday service on YouTube. I'm really excited to get that ritual back into motion. I'm super excited to connect with you guys on there. There's a lot of things I've been thinking about that I do want to kind of add to the queue of what we're going to talk about over on there. So check it out. Again, it's youtube.com/Sabrina Scott. My Instagram.com Instagram.com/Sabrina M. Scott. Just look me up on there with the M. And then I also just wanted to let y'all know I am doing year ahead readings for people. So if you do want to have a deep dive from someone who knows what they're talking about into your tarot for 2026, and you would like to reflect back on the year that you had, figure out how to have the best 2026, sort out what the lessons are going to be, what the theme of the year is going to be, and all of that fun stuff, you can book a reading with me at sabrinamscott.com/readings, and just scroll down a little bit. You will get a free half hour. It is 2.5 hour reading this year. I do them a little bit differently every single year, but if you've had one before, you will know more or less what to expect. And I'm super, super excited to work with y'all and see what 2026 holds for you guys. It will be pretty fun. So I'm booking them basically now onwards. I will stop booking them on my calendar at the end of January, so there still is a little bit of time. But in my opinion, December is the best time to do your cards for the year ahead. That's just my opinion. Because then you can enter into January 1st knowing exactly what energy you want to seize. But that's just my opinion. All right, y'all. Talk soon. Much love. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye.